Okay, thank you so much. Just amazing hearing from Christine. It, I mean, not in full, but expanded like that. And then Ethan, I don't know Ethan at all. It's just so inspiring. And mine's going to be very different. And so my personal journey is going to be a bit more about the internal journey, I think. And yeah, very much got kicked off around the sort of those alchemical moments where something shifts in us. I think a bit akin to Amalekitu's. He was referring to the Dimensions of the Great Turning by Joanna Mason. And the third one was the consciousness shift, this purifying the heart and mind. And I think it's safe to say I had a lot of that to do and still do. Anyway, so I didn't come from a family that loved the natural environment. We always liked stuff, comfort, etc. I wasn't a walker. The family hardly owned a comfortable shoe. I can't tell you I was carried to Greenham Common as a wee thing in a haversack, or that I joined Greenpeace at 14. So it took me years to get into nature, probably really only on meeting the Dharma, actually. And in line with my family, I wasn't a collective activist, not really, apart from Stop the War, one CND march, making poverty history in the UK, which I think everybody did anyway. But individually, I'd rebelled enough to question consumerism by my teens, materialism, etc. I always knew there was something not quite right. Obviously, when I met the Dharma, that really has started to answer a lot of questions, and also it opens up more. I mean, consequently, as an adult, I became, secondhand fiend, repudiated consumerism, really, in its more obvious forms. Higher temperatures in my house, went veggie, flew less. But then this was all still very much in isolation, like many, many people. With so many contradictions, I drove an old small car, and I still do a bit. 3 years ago, I moved to a small house, my flat. I know. And I think I used to experience a lot of shame about this imperfection. And I've had to get honest about my inner conflicts, as much for my engagement in the world practice as my inner practice. And that maybe I was just a Bombu activist, this Bombu idea, which is the ordinary flawed person in Pure Land Buddhism. Flawed, ordinary, foolish person, and that this was okay, I'm a natural introvert, but with such a drive to connect with the world and all its complexity, get beyond my fears, so that it's easier to, so that one can feel it's easier to stay at home with familiar people and tasks and all that kind of thing. And I always somehow felt in my life that I teetered on the edge of the cliff, but never quite flew. And I'm now 52. But then caring for my parents grew me and my sense of responsibility, care, courage, and commitment, and led to a better understanding of altruism, I suppose, and community. Now, this work on myself eventually brought me to a sense that I had to respond in a stronger way to our climate and environmental crises for the sake of all beings. So after my parents' death, I could suddenly see the horizon again. I eventually joined public sits with a nascent action group at Glasgow Buddhist Centre, where I'm with their Sangha, with Diana. We did 2 climate actions in solidarity with the youth climate strikers on Fridays, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe more. And this experience in George Square was phenomenal, just phenomenal. This groundedness in the eye of the storm of noise and movement, and circulating, sirening police cars, which I just never experienced. And I just felt like the Buddha was at my back. I think we all did. And after a bit, I decided to commit some energy to the new social action Kula at Glasgow Buddhist Centre. And then COVID arrived. I got sick, actually, and after recovering, Social Action Kula eventually met online. I was tentative. Yeah, I was bringing a sort of my secret but usual, I don't know what I'm doing to it. But eventually, in growing capacity and relating with the others, Yeah, I started to minute stuff. I went to all the meetings. I was quite committed, even though I didn't quite know how to do it. And eventually I was chairing. It was a bit awkward the first time, but before long, it just didn't any longer feel like a thing. I kind of started to feel like I knew what I was kind of doing, or it was just kind of organic or something. Anyway, in lockdown, immediately I was incredibly in touch with my distress and that of the world, and would naturally fall into a kind of daily Tonglen just to cope, I think, really, initially. People will probably relate. To cry in solidarity with fellow earthlings, to try and, in my tiny way, meet the world's suffering. It grew my sense of the potential impact of the climate emergency. Practice became very bare bones. I was getting, through a desire to lose weight so COVID wouldn't kill me if I got it again, a deeper understanding of my karmic agency and habits. So I learned better as I ate less and lost weight, how I worked. I was unbecoming and re-becoming in a less selfish flow. Realized I'd been addicted. Realized I'd been addicted all my life. Now I asked, why would I eat more than my needed share? Why would I eat that packet of biscuits when the whole world needs fed? So those moments of shift in consciousness, realizing I was worth care, and that I needed to be fit and healthy to align myself with good in the world. So a bigger perspective was shaping, nay, ramping up. Practice, Eightfold Path, seemed entirely mappable from caring about the planet. Converting right view to stronger right emotion was well underway, and deeper understandings about action, effort, and mindful presence and focus in the world too. My recovery was deepening a sense of continuity of purpose around karma and its fruits. I sometimes fell off the wagon, but I just got up again, got on with it. Satisfaction of my sense faculties was growing a bit less paramount as their limitations exposed themselves and the spiritual faculties bedded in a bit more. Faith, patience, mindfulness, energy in pursuit of the skillful, wisdom to understand how things came about or don't. Realization, if I'm not separate, but part of this flow of conditions, all needing their sustenance, why would I overprivilege my own neurotic desires and sense cravings over all these other precious beings? My path was clearly mapping onto the Dharmic one, the eightfold, a holistic oversight of human functioning and flourishings that had not always been terribly accessible to me. But now, greater mindfulness, due in part to some fantastic retreats during lockdown, was growing an investigation of Dhammas. They weren't just empty, but alive, beautiful in their uniqueness, that Amitabha quality. If life was this precious, and I was capable of acting, thinking, and using the whole of me for good, why wouldn't I do what I could to connect with the world in empathy, to connect with others, trying to do something to relieve suffering? Why wouldn't I try to spread awareness of the crises, their causes, and how things could change? So I started to go to climate-related things online. I started to pay attention to XR Buddhists. I started to pay attention to COP26 things, to COP26 Coalition, to Earth Vigil, XR Interfaith, Faith Bridge, which harked back to the Faith Bridge which sat during the XR rebellions in 2019 and 20. And I heard Joe Mission of XR Buddhists say in a welcome meeting, quite simply, if I was in the road and there was an oncoming bus, I'd get up and out of its way, and I'd try to help others too. Well, we've no planet B to get out of the way too. So we're kind of forced into staying put. And doing that, the thing to try would be those holding actions Amalakhetu talked about, the first of the 3 dimensions of the Great Turning. And this in Buddhist terms would equate to ceasing to do harm. And the second would be, once we somehow can see past that, or have some energy beyond that, to start to look at systems and how we can create alternatives or influence alternatives. And this relates to cultivating the good. And of course, the one I've related to already, consciousness shift, is purifying of heart and mind. And of course, they all just work in tandem, like a, not like a path, but like a big opening out and redoubling back and then tripping us up. And yeah, certainly all of that. So yes, I came to the belief that I have many resources, capabilities, skills, that I should use them to act for the good. And that this right understanding and action, in fact, are the whole Eightfold Path. And not really speech so much, but yet in a way what I understood, it's also speech, right speech to myself, to the universe, not undermining, underestimating or limiting myself. I remember Sadhana Andy, when she visited Glasgow Buddhist Centre, talking about when she went to chair at Adhisthana, and things would be required and people would say, could you do that? And initially she'd be like, oh, and she'd say, well, just step up, you know. Why me? Why not me? Why not me? So yeah, I think more need to just sort of take account of the overall perceptual situation at all times in life, and not just our own desires and needs. And just letting love in, allowing the patience to let love through for all these flawed tendencies I've mentioned. Yeah, patience with the wee girl who wanted to make the problems just go away, the problems of the world just go away by shutting her eyes tight. With my sometime spiritual and physical laziness, on my reliance on sensual enjoyment and promotion of sense faculties over spiritual ones. Sorry about that. So yeah, I realized that environment was not just in my sphere of concern, but actually in my sphere of actual influence. I think the more I reflected, and I think if we're all honest with ourselves, actually most things are actually in our sphere of influence if we really reflect on it. Kalya Chitta, during a retreat in 2017, one of the team at Tiratnaloka Ordination Retreat Centre, said one's duty is to the claims of this wider context. So if we're thinking about joining the order or we're in the order, I don't want to tell order members what they should be doing, but it was a what is the order retreat? And that really hit home. So just to say a little bit like what this has looked like in practice, just very quickly. I started paying more attention to all these organizations, joined the Zooms, learned stuff, went on courses, and started to piece things together, make links, and then with the help of the Social Action Kula, try to make sense of it all and strategize. Diana is our strategist. I'm not the strategist. I link and capacity build. And we're quite a team, I think. And yeah, I could just learn what's going on and bring that, and then other people might have ideas, and in a way it's just organic. And yeah, we now have an offering. We've put an offering out to the Sangha for the run up to and including COP, and I hope also beyond that, because we're going to need it, and I'm not expecting COP to answer all our problems, but I doubt it will at all. But anyway, I'll just finish by saying it is time. Thank you.